This week's Torah portion is a double portion, Matot Mas'eh. The word Matot means the tribes, and Mas'eh is referring. One minute. What's going on over here? 1 second. Excuse me. Oh, there we go. Matot is the tribes, and Mas'eh are the journeys. Matot are the tribes. There was 12 tribes, right? And also Levi, 12 tribes. And Mas'eh are the 42 journeys the Jewish people took in the desert. So the first one talks about messages that God gave to Moses to give to the Matot, to the tribes, to 12 tribes. And this one, the second Torah portion that we read this week is Mas'eh. Talks about the 42 journeys the Jewish people took in the desert. Now the word Matot also means a staff. A mateh is a staff. Even in English, they have the chief of staff. The chief of staff. And so staff means two things. It means a group, a company, whatever. Mateh. And also means a stick, a stick, a staff. So if you take it in that way, it's sort of two opposites. Matot is like a staff that's a firm thing, firm. And Mas'eh is moving, journeys. Okay, so let's go. Oh, one more thing. This is the last portions that we read. We're finishing the book of Numbers, finishing the book of Bamidbar. And when we finish the book of Bamidbar, when we finish any book of the Torah, so the whole, it's read on Shabbat, right? On Shabbat, it's read. So the one who reads from the Torah, as he reads the last sentence, and last sentence he finishes with a especially loud voice, and everyone says, Chazak, Chazak, Fanit Chazek, right? And that's what he says. So for instance, here we'll say, this week's Torah portion, Elah mitzvos v'mishpatim asher tzivah Adonai bi'ad Moshe b'nei Yisrael ba'arves me'av al yarden yerechoi. And everyone says chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, means be strong, and we will be strengthened. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. That's what we say every time we finish one of the 5 books of the Torah. Jews have been doing this for how long? 3,300 years. Since God gave the Torah, the Jews have been reading the Torah in public and doing this. So here we go. So if you multiply 3,300 by 5, which is like what, 16,000 or something like that. So it means that 16,000 times the Jews have been saying Chazak, Chazak, Vanit Chazek after the okay. Okay, this is a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991. 1991, and it was on the second day of Menachem Av. So it doesn't come out exactly, the date doesn't come out exactly corresponding to this year, to our date this year. This year, what does it come out on? It is the 28th day of Tammuz. And it's the last Shabbat of the month also. So this is what's called Shabbat Mavorchim. This is the Shabbat that blesses the whole month. But the Rebbe's not going to talk about that here because when the Rebbe was speaking, it was already after. This is already beginning of Rosh Chodesh. Okay, but it is in what's called the 3 weeks. It's the 3 weeks between Yud Zayin, the 17th day of Tammuz, which was when the walls of the temple, according to some opinions, the first and the second temple, were broken into. And 3 weeks later, Tisha B'Av is when the first and second temples were destroyed at a distance of about 500 years between them. Okay. Mia and Yanim Hamyuchadim among the special topics. Something's wrong. Okay. Wow, look at this. Mia. 1 minute. Mia and Yani, from among the topics which are special of this Shabbat, that in it we finished the book of Bamidbar. We finished the book of Numbers, the fourth book of the Torah. Shesiumo, that it ends, and the end of it, Mahave Sium Kol Torah, which basically is the end of the 4 books that of the Torah which God dictated to Moses. How does the Torah go? God dictated the first 4 books of the Torah to Moses. The last book of the Torah, Moses said himself. But everybody knows that it was really God speaking, but God was speaking through Moses. But it doesn't say that God is doing the speaking. All the other books, I mean, the first 3 books, from the book of Exodus. Okay, also book of Genesis. God is doing the speaking. God speaks to Abraham. God speaks Vayomer Hashem el Avram. God spoke to Abraham. God spoke to Moses. God spoke. In the book of Deuteronomy, it's not God speaking. It doesn't say Vayomer Hashem el Moshe that God spoke. All of it is Moses speaking. So the first 4 books of the Torah, from the 5 books of the Torah, the 5th book of the Torah, Mishnah Torah, Shechozer, that it really repeats and includes the 4 books which are before it. The 5th book of the Torah, Deuteronomy, is called, I guess maybe that's where the word Duru, wow, how did they get that word Deuteronomy? But anyway, I guess it means from duo, like the repetition. It's the second time. Before the Jews went into Israel, so Moses repeated the whole Torah to them, even though he added a lot of laws. I mean, there's a couple hundred laws or something that were added on. But nevertheless, he repeated the whole Torah. So the first 4 books of the Torah, that's, if you want to call it, the essence of the Torah. And the 5th book of the Torah is called the repetition of those 4 books, right? And after that, everybody, we yell out, Chazak, Chazak, Panit Chazek. So we're finishing the main body, we're finishing the first 4 books of the Torah, which is the main body of the Torah. And when we finish it in synagogue, we yell out, Chazak, Chazak, Panit Chazek. Be strong, and we will be strengthened. Shemor, that this indicates al chazak, being strong, power of the Jewish people in every matter of the Torah. Until shachozak gufo, that the strength is 3 times. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and we will be strong. And 3 times. Why 3 times? Just say 1 time we'll be strong. 3 times is an Eloi Ashlemos of Chazaka, what's called a Chazaka. In Judaism, there's a special importance to a thing which is done 3 times. If you do something 3 times, it's considered to be something like a vow, something like a declaration of permanence. You do something 3 times in a row. To the degree that if you do something 3 times in a row and it's a good thing, then you're supposed to say, I'm not doing this as a vow. I can change my mind if I want. I can change my mind. So let's say you have a sofer that every time before he writes the name of God, he washes his hands. He washes his hands. If he does it 3 times in a row, that's like a vow. He has to do it all the time. Unless he says beforehand, I'm doing it, but I'm not making a vow. If once in a while I don't want to do it, or if I want to stop, I can stop. But 3 times shows permanence. So Tzorech Li'avin, we have to understand what's the connection between the finishing of the 4th book of the Torah to our time. Tochana Shel Zaman, the time that we're in. Shel Olam Mesayim Sefer Revi, that we always finish the 4th book of the Torah, book of Deuteronomy, in one of the Shabbat that are between the Bein HaMetzorim, in these 3 weeks of mourning for the temple. There's sometimes even the first Shabbat of the 9 days, sometimes even like that was when the Rebbe was reading, when the Rebbe was speaking, that's the way it was. And it was in the first of the last 9 days of mourning. And so there's 3 weeks of mourning that we Jewish people commemorate the destruction of the first and second temple. 3 weeks. But the last 9 days, they're the most severe. They're the most severe. The restrictions are more severe in those 9 days. A lot of people, they don't eat meat and etc. In those 9 days, in the last 9 days. So the last 9 days, a lot of times this week's Torah portion always falls in the 3 weeks, and sometimes it also falls in the last 9 days. Which these last 9 days, that's when the want to call it the misery is most poignant, most felt. Hazman, the Gimel Shavuos, the 3 weeks, and especially the 9 days, are attached to the fact that the Jews are weak in holiness. Why do Jews do sins? Why do Jews do sins? Only because they're weak. A Jew that's strong knows who he is. He's not going to abandon his identity. But when a Jew is weak in his identity, and he doesn't feel that the fact that he's Jewish has any real repercussions or any meaning, just I know that I'm Jewish, so that's weak. He knows what he is, but, want to come to my party, we're eating pork. Yeah, oh, yeah, sure, okay. But you're Jew. Jews don't eat pork. Religious Jews, but I'm not. And he's weak. Because he's weak, so he can be lured, right, into doing bad things. So therefore, that's what we say, chazak, chazak, be strong, be strong. We have to strengthen our identity, who we are. So therefore, the 3 weeks of mourning and the whole idea of the destruction of the temple comes because Jews are weak. And now we have to be strong. Strong. Or at first glance, Yesh Lomar, we can say, that this is self-evident. Zaman says, since at this time is connected to Mamaru Matzav Shal Chalishos, since at the time we're reading this book of Numbers, finishing the book of Numbers, is in the 3 weeks or even in the last 9 days when it's a time of weakness. So therefore, it stressed the necessity, the necessity, and the, how do you say, the even more necessity, the urgency. We have to strengthen ourselves. So that explains why we say chazak, chazak at the end of the book of Numbers, because the ending of the book of Numbers is always in the 3 weeks, and that's a time of being weak. So we say it to be strong. Says the Rebbe, that's a good answer, but there's a better answer. Yoter Nira, it seems, shachizuk atzmo, that the strengthening itself is not a thing you bring from outside. It's kasher im tochno shel hazman. It's connected to the whole essence, nature of the time, and not just you have to be strong in a place where it's weak. Because we're weak, we have to be strong. No. Somehow or other, the time itself is what's making us strong. The destruction of the temple is not that it calls for emergency action. We have to take emergency steps. We're weak. That's one way of looking at it, but a better way of looking at it is no. The weakness itself is what's going to bring us to being strong. How is that? Like, for instance, the name of the Shabbat. The name of the Shabbat shows on the nature of Shabbat. It's called Shabbat Chazak. If it's the Shabbat, when we read we finish any one of the books of the Torah, that's called Shabbat Chazak, any book of the Torah. But if so, the Shabbat itself is in these 3 weeks, and in this year it came out when the Rebbe was speaking was also in the 9 days. So the whole thing of the Shabbat itself is strength, regardless of when it falls. But now the Rebbe is going to say that the fact that it's in the time of the mourning for the temple, that itself will bring a new type of strength. We'll see. It's a positive thing. What's the positive thing? We'll see. Yuvam Behektem, we can understand, first of all, a biur, the explanation, Bakesher, and the connection between Chazak, Benit Chazek, to the Torah portion that we're in now. Matot Maseh. So again, being strong is essential. Being strong is very good. Judaism depends on us being strong all the time. And especially this Shabbat, which falls in the 3 weeks, this gives us a special strength. And the fact that we're in the weeks of mourning, this gives an extra injection of strength. It's not that the strength comes to negate the bad. Somehow the bad is bringing about the strength. We'll see. So it says one way of gaining the strength, which is so essential to Judaism, is by getting hints from all over. God is throwing us all sorts of encouragement and inspiration, and also power itself. God is empowering us. God is not separate from us. Let's gain power from the name of this week's Torah reading, Matot Maseh. And this, it's included all of the details which are being strong. The matot, there's a certain strength which is in the word matot, and a certain strength is implied by maseh. And also there's a third type of being strong, which is when you join the two together. Okay, what's going on? What's the Rebbe talking about? Because the Rebbe is trying to activate us. The idea of being strong, powerful, assertive, and especially 3 times strong, this is most applicable or hinted at by the word matot. Matot maseh. What's matot? A mateh is a staff. This shows on power. Bal Yeshana, that won't change. Permanent power. Bedugmat a mateh, just like a staff, kepeshuto shehu chazak v'kasheh, a staff is a stick that's very hard and strong. Va'ad until shemateh u'baloshen memshala v'surara. Mateh, like it says, matot oz al shivte moshlim, a powerful rulership on the staff of the rulers. Where's the sentence? One second. Where does the sentence come from? From Yechezkel. From the prophet Ezekiel. Prophet. And so matot means power, rulership. Masha'inkin mas'eh. So mas'eh is halicha v'nesiyah, going and traveling. Vayisa haloch v'nesoah, moving from one place to another. This shows something that's not strong and permanent. She'eno omed ha'makom, it doesn't stand on its place. He goes and travels to another place, moving from one place to another. Halicha v'nesiyah emitit, which is nekar lagamri, he totally uproots himself from where he is and he moves to another place. Shebe'ein aruch, which is incomparable to the first. So if so, matot is permanence and strength, power, immovable. That's matot. Maseh is exactly the opposite, that there's no permanence, There's no foundation. It's moving. This is the opposite of the power we had from matot. So how is it the Rebbe said that no, both of them are powerful? We'll see. So from this, that we yell out, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, is always like this year, kamatot masot, when they're joined together. It's always at the end of matot and mas'eh. When we say strong, be strong. So when do we say be strong? After we finish reading the second reading, mas'eh, travels. So we read about travels, which is supposed to be, we just finished saying is not a strong thing. And that's when we say be strong, be strong. So it must be that the real strength is not from hinted at by being stable and permanent and immovable. That's certainly a type of strength. But there's some even greater strength, which is by being traveling, moving. Because we say chazak, chazak after we read this second Torah portion, which is traveling. And Parshas that we do every year. There are some years when we join matot and mas'eh together, and then we read after both of them. But every year when we read Parshat Mas'eh, that's the end of the book of Numbers. We always say strong and strong and be strong. So what type of strength is this hinting at? So we can say the hint is like this. I just want to say one thing. What does it mean that it's being hinted at, the power that we've got? A lot of times people see things. There's people that they see a great pianist play, and they decide that's what I want to do. They see a great tennis player or whatever. Oh, I want to be like that. Right? I said, in other words, it brings out something which is inside of you and that was there, I want to call it dormant or in potential, and it brings it out that it should be actual. And that's what the Rebbe is trying to say. It's inside of us. This power of matot mas'eh is inside of us. Judaism depends on it to be strong. But on the other hand, there's two types of strength. One type of strength is to be immovable, and another type of strength is to be movable, to move. And that's even a greater strength, the Rebbe says. Oh, so how is this going to be? What does this mean to me and you? Let's see. The explanation is like this. Chazakah, we said that a thing is considered to be permanent after you do it 3 times. And 3 times it's called a chazakah. Ubafrat, especially chazakah mishuleshet, especially a chazakah which is triple. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. We'll see what it means. So here we're saying chazak means 1 time. Being chazak, that already implies 3, because we said 3 is, and we say that 3 times. So it's like 3 times being strong, 3 times 3. Anything that you do 3 times is considered to be that it's permanent. But here we're saying, I'm going to be strong, I'm going to be strong, I'm going to be strong. It means I'm going to be permanent, permanent, permanent. So being permanent, you're saying that 3 times. So that's just not like anything. So it comes out, it's like 3 times 3. This stresses the chozek b'tokev gam b'makom sheyesh menaged. This is stressing to being strong when there's an opposition. You do it like it's known, shebemispar echad, when you have the number 1, that shows that a person is sheyesh melechadchila rak tova kedusha. Number 1 is there's just me, right? There's just me, or there's one. God is 1. Mispar shnayim, if there's 2 things, Mora, this is division. Like when God created the world, the second day of creation, he made division. On the first day, it was obvious that all there is God. He created light. Light is a revelation of God. The second day, it says that God made division. What does it mean, division? It seems that there's something else, something that's opposing God's oneness. And because, so that's number 2. Number 2 shows that there's not just 1, there is 2. The number 3, more al chazak v'tokef of kedusha, shows on a person being holy even when there is an opposition. A new thing is created. So a person, for instance, he grows up in a religious family and everything is wonderful, fine. And then he goes out onto the street and all of a sudden he hears, "Ooh, I like that music. Ooh, I like how that, look at that, I like that thing. I want that thing." All of a sudden he sees everybody is praising someone who's, dancing in the middle of the street. Oh, I want to get that praise. And suddenly, all of a sudden, there's all these things that are, when can I dance? Well, the earliest possible is on Shabbat. You have to dance on Shabbat. No, I'm a religious Jew. I don't want to do that, but I do want to get that applause. The only way to get it. So now he's got a war. He's got a war going inside of himself, right? A war going. On one hand, he's religious. He knows that he has to keep Shabbat. On the other hand, he wants that applause, and he really wants that too. So which is he going to do? What God wants or what he wants? So eventually, he starts to convince himself. Listen, if God created that I should feel good on Shabbat, that's what he wants. He gives in. He is all of a sudden his determination becomes weakened. That's number two. That there's him, but there's something opposing him. There's God, and there's also the world. What's number three show? Number three shows that even though that there is God, and even though that there is a world, but I am going to say that God is one. And God, the whole world is a creation of God. I have to use the world to do what God wants with it. There's things that I also want. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be strong, and I'm going to refrain from doing what God forbids, and I'm going to force myself to do what God wants. That's what's called making harmony, being strong. So that's why it's strong three times. There's two ways of being strong. Either you can be strong from above, namely chozek v'tokev hamshachas ora kedusha, inspiration from above, drawing down from above to below. Gam makom sheish nigud, and saying wherever you are, you pray to God or you ask for inspiration, and you stand firm. Mitzad gadol milas haor, because of the great light which comes from above, like Mount Sinai, like at the 6-day war, right? Everybody saw that God was helping the Jews. That's one type of being strong. Then there's another type of being strong, which is mitzad tachton, from below. Sha'avodah, the halat tachton, of elevating from what's below, from below to above. This is in a way which is powerful, levatel menaged, that it comes from me. Like the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was in prison. It seemed that he was totally abandoned. There was murder, death all around him, and there was no way he was going to get out. He was there, and it seemed that he had been abandoned. But he himself, from his own power, his own self, he made his firm resolution: I am not going to be moved by anything that happens here. That's because that negates the opposer, and even more, it transforms it to holiness. Beit Ofanim, these two ways, I think we're going to have to skip a little bit, maybe we'll see. These two ways are hinted at in Chazak Benit Chazek. Chazak of Parshas Matot, being strong, that's like the staff. That's like strength that comes from above. Moses spoke to the head of the tribes, and this is the thing that God commanded. That's the Jewish people were strong like a staff. A chozek v'tokev, that you're immovable. A chazak of Parshas Masei, when we say is moving, what's strong over there? This is the strong strength which comes from us. Elu Masei ben Yisrael asher yatzu mi'eretz Yisrael, that the Jewish people are strong. The Jewish people are strong. So that when you meet opposition in life, difficulties in life, so there's two ways to be strong. One way is to draw from God's inspiration to you, and another one is making a firm resolution that even if there's no inspiration and everything is, I'm going to be strong. That's the strong and the talk of Shavavodet b'nei Yisrael b'biru v'alos atachtom. We are going to work in the world. I am devoted to Hashem. I don't care what anybody says, right? Even if I'm outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1, and Shalamarot shinuyim v'chiluki dargos shebe pirtei amasos. Even though there were all these different details and all of the journeys that the Jews made in the desert, according to how they were, nimsa in tamid b'tenua shel halicha v'nisiyah. Nevertheless, they did not stop. They were always moving. They knew that they had work to do, and nothing deterred them or stopped them from their work. They were moving to Eretz Israel. So they were doing the work on their own. According to this, now we have to now the connection between chazak of Maseh. What do we say? There was matot, maseh, and both of them are combined together. Matot is talking about, it's talking about three types of being strong. The being strong of matot means you're firm. You're firm. I know I'm a Jew. I am firm. God is inspiring me. That's the first. That's the first chazak. But then there's a chazak being strong of maseh, journeying, moving, going in the world. You have to inspire yourself. Then it's more stressed. But both of these cases we're talking about is when you meet opposition. Meeting opposition and being strong, that's a very good thing, right? Being opposition. But that's if you're strong and you stay in one place, then that shows on a strength, but not as much strength as if you're moving in the world. And then you have to then you meet more opposition. The opposition will change all the time. You can't get used to it. That's shalo zu bilavad sha'achozek v'atokef of the light of holiness is drawn in everywhere without considering the world at all, right? You're not reckoning with the enemy. Ela ozot be even more. Sheyeshno itaskut imenagid. You can actually deal with the opposition to negate it and to transform it to holiness. The true completion of being strong, though, is when you can join both together. What do you mean joining both together? Hachozek v'matot, being strong and firm and staying where you are because you feel I am a Jew. There's a very good thing about this. What you feel holiness. It's above any limitation. I'm a Jew, right? If you want anything, you come to me. I'm not going to you. But since this type of strength, it comes only because of God's inspiration. And it's not relevant to the low world, the opposition. So therefore, it's not that strong. Maybe a good example is there's a lot of religious groups, a lot of Hasidim and etc. And they're beautiful, wonderful, and they learn Torah and they do the commandments, but they have to be in their place. They have to be in their place. And if you come into their place, they're friendly to you and they're nice and but they have to be in their place. They can't move around. The outside world has so many not nice things that you see, and you're approached by so many, you're attacked by so many unexpected things that you can't prepare for, that they have to be strong in their place. That's pure Judaism. Pure Judaism. Then there's Judaism, let's say like Chabad. We go out. You go out into the world. That's not so easy. You're always meeting with difficult things, and sometimes it weakens you a little bit. But nevertheless, you are strong. You come from yourself, from below to above. That's like the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe who said in prison, right? Who would dream that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe would sit in prison, right? Such a holy person. But there he was, and nevertheless, he adapted to the situation, and he said, I'm going to be as strong here as I am at home. It's not so easy to do. But nevertheless, that's a type of a strength. That's the strength of Masa'eh. There's a big thing of bittul. You have to surrender yourself, and you can even transform the opposition. Right? People, non-Jews, your enemies, they see that you stand up in the face of their strength as it impresses them. Like I said, the whole world was impressed by the 6-day war. Right? We were attacked all over. Everyone was out of their minds, right? With the Jews, it impresses the world. The world transforms. That's the advantage of going out. But because all the strength comes from us, that we haven't got the power, which is unlimited. So it's the effect that we have on the world is limited. Limited. Okay, so again, what are we talking about? The best thing is, right? You want a person to become a practicing Jew, let's say, to do practicing Jew. So you go out to all these Chabad houses, you go in the street and you put the tefillin on people, and etc. And the person does have one commandment here, does another. But ideally is if you can convince the person to come into a yeshiva, if you can convince a person to come, right, and learn with us. Oh, then the person becomes strong. So when a person comes into, let's say, the yeshiva or the place of learning or the synagogue, and he's praying with everybody, he feels the godliness. Ooh, that's a wonderful thing. He feels the godliness. That's a new type of strength. That's ideal. That's like matot. The other way of spreading Judaism is you go out, like Chabad does. It's very wonderful, but on the other hand, it's not as strong. It's coming from us. It is coming from us. Good. It's inspiring to some people, but it's not. You can't really sit down and learn in a complete way like you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to do. A person really wants to become a really religious practicing Jew. He has to take off a month or whatever it is and go to a place of learning and just sit concentrated and learn. That's the best way to do it. If you can't do it that way, okay, then a little bit here, a little bit there. You watch on the that's like mas'eh. That's like traveling. So it says you don't get as powerful a message that you do, but you do get the message that it's coming from us, that even if there's no inspiration from above, that Judaism is a thing that we can inspire ourselves. That's matot is staying in one place firm, and mas'eh is to travel around. Matot has the advantage that you feel the godliness, and mas'eh, when you're traveling around, it's got the advantage that you feel it's coming from us, but it's not as impressive as godliness. Look, and therefore the true completion is if you can join them both together. Sheyesh beis malos, chozek v'tokef, the power of drawing down godliness from above. You see holiness. On the other hand, also the surrender that you get from traveling around, from moving, and you can also transform the bad into good. You meet more bad, and you can impress the bad in a way that transforms it to good. But you don't feel the godliness as much. Joining them together is the ideal. You have to join them together, shabitl menaged, that you can negate and transform opposition, is in a way that it's set and permanent, like in the first, the matot, in a permanent way. Okay, so maybe we left out something we should have said in the beginning. And the ideal purpose of the whole world is to realize that there's a creator and to act accordingly. There's a creator and to act accordingly. The creator gave us the Torah. That's the only time he ever really told man what he wants from the world, was when he gave the Jews the Torah. So we have to awaken the Jews. Awaken the Jews. Ideally, it's supposed to be the awaken the Jews in a permanent way. A permanent way. That's symbolized by matot, staff. But also, if you can't do it in a permanent way, so then you can go out and try to get Jews even a temporary way. Temporary. But the ideal is if you can do both, that you arouse Jews temporarily, and it's permanent. It's permanent. Right? That you arouse them, you even transform them. Suddenly you have a non-religious person who's willing to put on tefillin and he's willing to say Shema Yisrael. He said, but it doesn't last that long. The ideal is that it's permanent, like matot and maseh, like matot, chazak, and maseh, which is chazak, and that even transforms the opposition, but not permanently. And joining them together means that you can transform the opposition, maseh, and even do it permanently, matot. How can we do it permanently? That we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. Strength. We have to be strong. Okay. That's one thing we see now in the world, that this Bibi Netanyahu, he's acting strong. We'll see. It's not his nature to be strong. His nature is to what do you say, to find the loopholes that he pleases the most people, to run through the drops. But now he's starting to see that, like, his back is against the wall. He has to take a stand. He has to take a firm stand. He has to be strong. And that's what the Lubavitcher Rebbe told all of them. Begin and Sharon and all, you must be strong. It's a thing that the Medina of Israel, the Israeli government never did. They were always worried about what the non-Jews say, always, always. And the few minutes that they didn't in the 6-day war, where they didn't care then they were victorious. Then they won. We have to be strong. So the Rebbe is saying, listen, let's not talk about the Israeli government. That's not our problem. Let's talk about us. That's a little more. Let's talk about the government again. No, You have to work on yourself. We have to be strong. The reason that they're not strong is because Tuvia Bolton is not strong. And if I was strong, then it would have an effect. There's one person that I can have an effect on in the world, and that's me. That's me. Other people, I can do what I can, but in the end, it's up to them to decide on their own. So, but I can affect myself. So at least let me do that. And that's what the Rebbe is saying. We have to be strong, and we have to be permanent, and we have to be moving, and we have to transform the world, and we can put them all together, and we're going to find out how. Now let's do the Yom Yom. All right.